All right, here we go. Welcome, Lizzie. This is our second sponsor streams episode. We have Lizzie Ann Jones, former Amazon, Expedia, and now founded her own company, Hey Lizzie Ann. Welcome.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. It's great to have you as well. So I don't really know too much about you. I've seen your LinkedIn. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your journey from Amazon and Expedia to now founding your own company?
Yeah, totally. So when I started at Amazon, I was a human resources generalist. So that means I did everything and anything HR related, from hiring employees to payroll to all the way up to firing employees. I did it all. And my favorite part of that process by far was the recruiting end. That's when you're essentially giving people good news. And I like that part of the job. And then just getting to know people's career interests and matching them to the right opportunity. That's something that has always interested me. So after a year of doing that, I switched to a university recruiting role within Amazon. And I did that for a year, which was really cool. I got to work with a lot of students and get to know them and their journey to Amazon and guide them through that process. And I enjoyed that work a lot. So I did that for a year, and then my last stop was at Expedia Group and industry recruiting. So that is where you're hiring pretty much role by role for a particular business unit, which is different from university recruiting, which is more of kind of like program management. You're hiring a bunch of interns for a bunch of different positions. So I did that for 2 years. In that time, I also started my own company, Hey Lizzie Ann. And I began that because as I went through my recruiting journey, I had a lot of people reach out to me about looking at their resume or helping them prepare for interviews. And a lot of them tended to be young professionals. And that's something that I went through myself after I graduated college. There was just so much about recruiting that I had no idea about. And I think a lot of that was, one, because I'm a first gen graduate, so I didn't have a lot of people in my family or personal network who went through the corporate recruiting process. And two, corporate recruiting and the workforce has changed so much in the last 10 years because of technology. And I think oftentimes career centers don't always follow up with those trends. So there are just a lot of nuances on like how to use a LinkedIn effectively, how to network with people that I had no idea on how to do. And so as I learned those things, I began sharing those tips with my friends and in my personal circle, and then also on LinkedIn as well. And because of this just large following that I got on LinkedIn and then just in my professional network, it really showed me that there was a need for just modern day career coaching advice for that young professional who's really eager to get their first, big girl, big boy job, but just, needs a little fine tuning on how to get there. So that's why I started Hey Lizzie Ann in 2018. I did it on a part-time basis while I was at Expedia Group. Currently, I'm doing it full-time while also being a full-time student in grad school. I'm getting my MBA at Rice. So that's a little bit about me and the journey from Amazon to now.
That's exciting. So I want to go off of a little point that you made about college students, and I want to ask you a little bit about your sort of college experience and what, if you could go back to college, what would you do differently, or what would you repeat? I think that might help give some good advice to college students that may be a little bit confused where they are right now.
Yeah, I would definitely tell myself to be more inward focused versus outward focused when it comes to career searches. I was someone who was just really fixated on titles. I would look at a job title and see if I could fit into that box and could just try to imagine myself within that job title. But what I would have done if I could do it right now is just think about what are the things that I actually like to do? What are the things that I'm good at? And then find opportunities that align, because sometimes what you're interested in doing is different from the particular job title that encompasses it. And job titles have changed so much, especially within the tech industry. A program manager in this segment of tech could be so different from another segment. So just concentrating more on like what you want and what you bring to the table, as opposed to just like looking through listings and just kind of seeing where you match up.
It's a good point. And would you say it's more important to have or to focus on your skills or your hobbies, in that sort of sense?
That's a good question. I would say there should be a little bit of both. Ideally, it'd be, 75% focused on maybe your skills, and then, the last kind of quarter based on your hobbies. Because the thing with hobbies is that in some cases it could turn out to be a professional passion or interest, but that's not always the case. But oftentimes, the hobbies and things that you dedicate your time to outside of work, they have elements of skill that you utilize in a full-time position. So I would say doing a little bit of both can be helpful.
Right. And I guess not necessarily your hobbies are always gonna be what you do for work. So those skills are really important. Um, so as a recruiter and looking at people's passions and stuff like that, what would you say are some of the important things that recruiters look for in college students, either interpersonal that are not going to be on a resume, or more hard skills that would be easier to put on a resume?
Yeah, so I would say for hard skills, um, one, it depends on the role and how technical it is, but I would say across the board, if you're looking in corporations, they want you to know pretty much like the Microsoft suite. More companies in non-tech are getting into big data. So if you're able to take like a Tableau class or a SQL class, that's always going to be helpful for you no matter what the position is. Um, so those are things technical side, but most of what they're looking for, if it's not like an SDE, like super technical position, will be on the softer side. So they know that as college students that you're going to school to learn broad skills that you'll hopefully be able to apply to an industry. So they're not looking for you to be an expert in the field. They're just looking for you to have potential. So having good leadership skills, being able to communicate well verbally and in writing, being able to collaborate with people, being able to think of new ideas. Those are the things that are most important to companies. It's not the really like fine-tuned skill set just yet. So they're looking for general team players versus like specific athletes.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that you don't have to be an expert, because I know that myself I've fall victim to that thinking that mindset. What would you say are some of the things that students can prepare? Because you said that college classes are a little bit general in getting those skills. What would you suggest college students do to prepare for a job in the future? And it doesn't really matter what
Yeah,
industry, I guess.
yeah, I would say the first part is spend a good time on just self-reflection and seeing what you want. Sometimes it can be easy to get in that trap of like, oh, my friend's got internships at these companies, so I'm going to look at them, versus spending time to really know what you want. And I keep stressing that because it's so important. Sometimes people just jump to wanting the tangible and just like wanting to get their resume out there. But first thing is reflect on exactly what you want, and you can do that by making a list of things that you like to do, the classes that you like, the hobbies that you have, and then see what kind of skills line up and look up entries that match those skills and try to do coffee chats with people who work in those jobs. So you can just get like a narrower net in terms of what you want to pursue. Once you got 3 or 4 possible jobs you might be interested in, that's where you want to kind of fine tune your time. So at that point, it would be helpful to join any professional clubs, organizations where you can learn more about the industry. They typically at universities will have guest speakers, just to kind of solidify, okay, is this what I want to do, or should I do some more thinking and reflection? Once you've done that and you're really set on, okay, here's the type of job that I want, then you want to go a layer deeper and make sure you get any certifications or classes that you might need. I would stress this more for like technical roles, like you're learning the languages and getting the skills down. And even for non-technical roles, like if they're it's a writing heavy role, you might want to take an editing elective class. So try to see what like sort of skills that they're looking for in that industry that are a little bit more specific, and try to get your elective class to line up. At this point, you'll probably be like a junior or senior when you're a little bit more kind of set on what you want to do. Once you have all that prepared, you just want to go start networking as soon as possible. And you don't have to wait until you're completely prepared and you took all these classes. But, once you feel a little bit confident in what you want to do and the industry, try to just network as soon as you can. That's something that I really wish I would have done earlier in my college experience. and you're a university student, you kind of have that leg up in that you're connected with the alumni network at your school. They'll usually have like a database there. You can connect with the career center schools who can connect you with alumni, and then just on like LinkedIn or just reaching out to people. People love, helping students. So definitely
Right.
milk that as much as you can. But, saying that you're a student, you're eager to learn, people are usually really receptive to that.
Right. I like what you say about people really loving college students. I remember the first time I talked to Marcel, he told me, Take advantage of it. People are like, they think of college students as puppies. Play the puppy." um,
Yeah, and everyone loves puppies, right?
exactly. You can't hate them. Um, so I guess I guess we'll focus on the resumes a little bit. What's one
Okay.
tip or your favorite tip that you would give to students about the resumes and highlighting their experience, their passions, any extracurricular activities? Yeah, what would you say is one
Yeah.
of your favorite resume tips?
The My favorite tip, which I give over and over again, is writing your resume in the XYZ format. It was published first, I think, by Google. So it's basically saying I leverage X skill by doing Y task, which resulted in Z metrics. So, for example, I led a team project by collaborating with 5 different teams, which resulted in a 90% success rate. And that is so important because college students typically they know what they like and they can articulate what they've done, but a lot of times college students have trouble articulating the actual scale at which they did something, which is super important for a company to understand. So it's not enough to say that you were president of a club or you were a student organization. You want to write down like how many people did you lead, like what was the cadence that you led people, how many projects did you do, how many events did you create. That is like the real meat of what you want to communicate. So that's like the number one tip that I have. And if you just Google XYZ resume, like it'll be the first one that pops up into the link. That's just a tip that I give over and over again. And I wish more college students could do that, because a lot of times you have these bright, capable college students, but they don't necessarily translate their experiences effectively on paper, which a resume isn't the most important thing in the search process by far, but it's kind of like a business card. You want to make sure you're presenting yourself in a way where people want to learn more and actually, give you that phone call and be able to talk to you in person.
Right. And how would you say, like, if somebody doesn't have numbers? Because I know numbers really stand out on a resume, but not all the time you're going to have numbers. What would you say to somebody that maybe is stressing over, oh, I have to have this metric on my resume, but they maybe didn't have
Yeah.
the data to show for it?
Totally. And there's two things that you can do in that situation. So first, the answer is like every single job that you do, there will be metrics involved, whether it's apparent or not. So the first thing that you can do is guesstimate. So when you're putting numbers on a resume, it doesn't have to be, extremely precise. What you can do is just make an estimate. So for example, I've had students, they worked in a customer call center, and I would ask them, okay, like how many customers did you work with on a daily basis? And they didn't know, like their company wasn't tracking that. So what you can do is just say, okay, on a given day, I saw about 10 people, and that's pretty average. So 10 people per day would be 50 people per week. So, customer service agent helping 50 different customers on a basis, right? So you can definitely just guesstimate in terms of what you've done in a role. And then what you can do in the future is, if you are in a position where they don't really document metrics so much, is just document them yourself. So if you're trying to figure out metrics on like, let's say you're sending out a weekly report, like asking your boss, like about how many people are seeing this or how many teams are seeing this. Okay, there's 3 teams that are seeing this. I know that there's about 10 people per team. So this is a report that's going out to 30 people weekly. So the first thing that you can do is guesstimate. The second thing that you can do in the future is to math on your own.
Awesome. I think that's really good advice. And I know even for myself, I have a little bit of trouble and I stress. That's why I asked that question. But thank
There
you
you go.
for sharing that.
Of course.
um, so I think you've shared some really, really valuable information. But maybe is there something that I haven't asked or any final words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Final words of wisdom is I would say like go easy on yourself. Right now, I think we're in very weird times, especially when it
Exactly.
comes to recruiting. I know right now, people watching or listening, you might not have that internship or you did get it and it got rescinded. That's okay. There are so many people in your same boat. So don't put so much pressure on yourself. You have the rest of your life to, work 40, 50 hours a week. So just remember that we are in a really weird time. A lot of people are in a similar situation to you. And teams are going to be very understanding of that. If you have a blank in summer 2020, like don't worry about that. Recruiters and hiring managers, they're aware of this time. So if you can take a little bit of pressure off yourself, please do.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on today. We really appreciate having you, and we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks.